I, Dr. Anand Vardhan, a faculty at the School of Heritage Research and Management, Ambedkar University, New Delhi, will discuss today archaeology as an academic discipline. Basically, in today's lecture, I will discuss archaeological sites in a special context to early Harappa and Harappa. Archaeology as an academic discipline is a significant subject. Discovery of Harappan sites and different phases of Harappan civilization has been very significant in context of Indian history. The objective of this video presentation is to highlight beginning of Harappan archaeology, important sites and salient features of early Harappan settlement. After listening this video, you will be able to learn how the Harappan civilization was discovered and why was it named so, what an archaeological site is, where the early Harappans and Harappan sites are located, about the characteristic features of the Harappan civilization and how this civilization was connected with other contemporary civilizations in the world. So, let us start discussing the introduction part of Harappan civilization. The Harappan civilization was in fact a startling discovery of 20th century. As a new discovery, it attracted the attention of the whole world as people believed that the Vedic age was the oldest known culture of the Indian subcontinent. After the great discovery, the existing perception of Indian history drastically changed. You may have heard the names of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa in your middle class history books. What do these signify to you? Scholars tell us that they were the cities existing 4,500 years ago and were parts of a forgotten civilization. Interestingly, it was an urban civilization that was known for numerous cities. These cities sprawled over the entire geography of northwestern India, Pakistan and Afghanistan. There were a large number of rural settlements too. The largest concentration of such sites have been reported from Saraswati Valley. At its peak, at its pinnacle, this civilization covered a very wide area measuring around 1.8 million square kilometers. Its mature phase lasted for about 800 years and it maintained trade contacts with far-flung areas such as Mesopotamia, ancient Iraq and Egypt. In this unit, I will discuss the various aspects of Harappan civilization. What is an archaeological site? It is always a subject of great concern for a student of history. Friends, archaeology is a scientific study of ancient mounds, sites, relics and historic remains. Initially, a term called antiquarianism was used for collecting and studying old historic remains. Later, a scientific mode of study with an approach for chronological study evolved. It was an adequate examination of material culture that became basis for scientific historiography. Archaeology, simply stated, is the study of human antiquities. An archaeologist is one who is involved in such studies. An archaeological site is basically a place where the remains of an old civilization exist, sometimes visibly, but mostly under cover of the earth. It needs a lot of careful digging and sifting, which in archaeological terms is called excavation. After excavation, the site reveals the existence of human settlement with houses, streets, potteries, tools and other implements like sculpture, painting, writing, etc. This ancient human settlement, discovered or unearthed during the modern times, is called an archaeological site. Knowledge about archaeology and archaeological sites adds to the expertise of those tourism professionals who package tour to work as guides and scouts. There has been an increased interest in cultural and heritage tourism in modern times. In some of the countries, tour operators package archaeological sites as tourism products and offer archaeological tours as a special interest tours. In this respect, continuing this very discussion, we will discuss discovery and naming of the Harappan civilization. Nothing definite was known about this civilization until 1921. An archaeologist named Dayaram Sahini visited a place named Harappa in western Punjab. Now the place is situated in Pakistan. It was believed by the villagers of the local area and also by some earlier archaeologists that it was a 1,000-year-old city which was ruined because of the wickedness of a king. After excavation, however, it was established that it was a long forgotten civilization that existed almost 5,000 years ago, and it was contemporaneous civilization of the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt. Unlike in Mesopotamia and Egypt, the script in which Harappan people wrote is still not deciphered. So, we do not know what those people called themselves and what was the name of their civilization. We also do not know the ancient names of various Harappan cities discovered so far. We are therefore forced to name them after the names of the modern places where these sites are located. Since Harappa was the first site to be discovered, the entire epoch was termed as Harappan civilization. It was named Harappa as there is a convention among the archaeologists to name a civilization after the first discovered site. And this is how, dear friends, we call this entire civilization of ancient Indian subcontinent as Harappan civilization. Now, we will discuss the geographical spread or the extension of this ancient civilization. As stated earlier, this civilization at its pinnacle covered an area as wide as 1.8 million square kilometers. Its northern border reached Sortghui in northern Afghanistan, while the southern limits dipped down to Bhagatrao and Daimabad in Gujarat and Maharashtra region. Sukat Gendor in Baluchistan formed the western border, and the eastern zone of Harappan civilization spread out to Bargaon, Manpur and Alamgirpur in modern day Uttar Pradesh. But the main concentration of the Harappan settlements are to be found along the Harappa, Ghaggar, Mohenjo-daro axis. Most of the Harappan sites are to be found in the present day Pakistan, including the two most important sites, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. However, a great number of sites have been reported from Saraswati and Drishdavati river basin as well. This civilization also covered a wide variety of land and climatic zones, while the settlement in Baluchistan developed and survived in inhospitable dry climatic conditions and unapproachable hilly terrains. The settlement in the Ganga Jamuna Doab enjoyed all the bounties of the nature. Hundreds of kilometers of desert land separated the Harappan settlement in Rajasthan and Gujarat. The premier Harappan settlements in the Ghaggar Hakra Indus region, however, were situated in the flood plains, and the land was highly fertile, able in making possible for the cities to procure food from adjoining villages. We will discuss how the different period of the Harappan civilization are significant for all the learners and the scholars. So far as the timing of Harappan civilization is concerned, there is no unanimity of opinion among various archaeologists and scholars. In this section, you will find the different viewpoints of some of the eminent archaeologists. Archaeological sites of early Harappan period have been very significantly defined by John Marshall. John Marshall placed Mohenjo-daro one of the most significant sites between 3250 and 2750 BC. Mackay, another archaeologist, in 1938 thought that Mohenjo-daro existed between 2800 and 2500 BC, while Mortimer Wheeler, another great archaeologist of colonial era, proposed in 1947 the age of Harappan civilization, quoting that it existed between 2500 and 1500 BC. In the early 1960s, I mean after independence of India, Indian archaeologists also tried their level best to describe and explain the period of Harappan civilization. Among them, D.P. Agrawal used the radiocarbon dating method and chronologically situated this civilization between 2300 and 1700 BC. After calibrating these dates for possible errors, some scholars have now put the dates of the rise and fall of Harappan civilization between 2700 BC and 1400 BC respectively. This shows that Harappan civilization spread widely both in terms of space as well as time. After this discussion, we will try to understand the early Harappan settlements and their nature. The early Harappan settlements evolved from pre-Harappan pastoral and quasi-agricultural settlements of Balochistan and Sindh region. However, rapid excavations within independent India has brought to the fore substantial archaeological remains in the early Harappan phase. It has made clear the indigenous origin of Harappan civilization. In fact, agrarian surplus was the key factor which transformed the rural Harappan culture into vast growing market economy that changed the life and culture of early Harappans. The early Harappan period was, to some extent, a distinct phase leading towards the mature Harappan period. In this section, we will discuss the origin and various characteristics of this period where there was progression towards cultural homogeneity or not. Let us discuss origin of Harappan civilization and how it achieved homogeneity. There is an increasing homogeneity or similarity of opinion among the scholars that Harappan civilization had indigenous roots. By this, we mean to say that although trade and commerce might have played some role, this civilization originated in the Indian subcontinent and evolved out a long process of development. The first phase of this process was the transformation of the hunting, food gathering tribes into settled agriculturists. The following sites show how the early Harappan phase originated and took shape. We will discuss some of the significant, well excavated Harappan sites. For example, Mehergarh. The earliest evidence for this development comes from a place called Mehergarh, situated in Balochistan. In its earlier phase, the people in Mehergarh used stone tools, but no pottery are found from this particular strata. During the second phase, stone tools were refined and potteries were made. During third phase, there was greater use of pottery and copper tools were introduced. The villages were getting larger, the houses became bigger, and agriculture developed in scientific manner. Similar settlements have been reported from Mundi Ghag in Afghanistan and Cholistan desert in the Ghaggar Hakra valley. It was from these settled agricultural communities that early phase of Harappan civilization developed, which was marked by incipient urbanism. Mundi Ghag, it is one of the important early Harappan sites that is situated in southern Afghanistan. Located on the distant trade route, the place seemed to have passed through 4 phases of development. Phase first was marked by incipient urbanism. The township was more firmly established during the second phase. The houses were larger, well constructed, and many rooms had hearth in the center. During phase H1, the use of both copper and bronze objects remarkably increased. Terracotta figurines of humped bull and woman are also found during phase 4th. Mundi Ghag became a developed township with defensive walls and square bastions of sun-dried bricks. A place and a temple are also found. Potteries were more refined and decorated with a red slip and black paint showing birds, bulls, and peepal trees. All these developments took place during the middle of the 4th and beginning of the 3rd millennium BC. Dambsadat, situated in the Quetta valley of Balochistan, this place shows parallel developments witnessed at Mundi Ghag. During the end of the 4th and beginning of the 3rd millennia BC, the houses were getting increasingly larger and bricks were used for their construction. Clay button seals, copper dagger blades, bone tools, and varieties of painted potteries have been discovered from this site. We have another interesting topic, that is to discuss the concentration of early Harappan sites in Ghaggar Hakra Indus axis. It was in this region that the Harappan civilization developed full blown. The early Harappan settlements played a major role in these future developments. Around 40 early Harappan sites have been discovered in this region, some of which are like Amri. We will discuss first Amri. That was the first early Harappan site discovered in 1929. It was located near the Indus River on the fertile alluvial land. In various phases, Amri shows the development of Indus pottery tradition from handmade monochrome potteries to nicely painted well-made potteries decorated with humped Indian bulls. The use of copper and bronze also increased. The houses also showed improvement and were made of stone and mud bricks in the later phase. Small granaries have also been found in these houses. The later period also reveals the existence of a walled enclosure, which might have been used as a means of defense. We have another interesting site from this region, and the site is Kot Diji. It was a very important early Harappan site that is located on the left bank of river Indus opposite to Mohenjo-daro, that is about 100 kilometers to the northeast of Amri. Two significant features of this site are important in relation to the future developments. One is the existence of a massive and solid defensive wall of mud resting on a stone and supported with mud bricks, revetment at some place and outside. The second important feature is the diverse forms of well-made potteries decorated with plain dark brown stripes. The painting are of fish scales, people, leaves, and sometimes horned deity. This kind of pottery has been named as the Kot-Dizian pottery and was widely spread in the entire Indus area. It has also been reported from far-flung areas like Kalibangan in Rajasthan and Mehergarh in Baluchistan. The motifs such as hornbull, fish, and people leaves used in the Amri and Kot-Diji potteries have been found extensively even during mature Harappan period. Another important site is Gumla, that is situated in Gomal Valley. This early Harappan site reveals the existence of Kot-Dizian pottery in its later stages. Semi-precious stone leaves, bangles, and terracotta female figurines have also been reported from this site. Rahman Dehri, it is a large early Harappan site. It has a walled enclosure 4 feet wide resting on wide foundation. It was constructed by packed mud, brick-shaped clay slabs and dressed clay blocks. Kot-Dizian type potteries with red paints and fish scale, people leaves and peacock figures were made. Precious stones like turquoise and lapis lazuli have also been found. Some scholars think that the graffiti found on the pots could be considered as the forerunner of Harappan script. There is another site, Livan and Tarkai Kilas. It is situated in Banu area of northwest frontier. Tarkai Kila also shows the evidence of fortification. Precious stones like turquoise and lapis lazuli are also found here. In the region of Punjab, Rajasthan and Haryana, there are some very important sites, namely Harappa. This site reveals the existence of an early Harappan phase. Kot-Dizian type of potteries have been found, lapis lazuli, steatite and terracotta human figurines have been reported from different levels of Harappa. During its early phase, Harappan people lived in houses made of mud bricks of a standard size. The township was fortified with a 3 to 4 meter thick wall, copper axes, terracotta bangles, sail, carnelian, etc. have been found from here. Another important site is Kalibangan. From here, we have got early Harappan copper objects. Banavali is another Harappan site of the early phase that is situated in dried up course of Ghaggar and Saraswati in the Hisar district of Haryana. Materials found at this site comprise potteries, terracotta, bangles, and many other important objects signifying the early material culture. Kunal. The site is found at the dried up course of the Ghaggar Saraswati in Haryana. Unpainted black and red ware terracotta beads, lapis lazuli, etc. have been found here. In the last, now I assume that after going through this video, you may have enlightened yourself with the following facts. These sites discussed today have yielded authentic materials that help us in understanding how agricultural surplus resulted into growth of multiple crafts and craft specialization. The Harappan civilization is testimony of a highly industrialized society based on rural boom. Actually, the rural surplus economy was the main factor which played a dynamic role in industrial development in that area, and subsequently the predominance of the Harappans in international trade and commerce. We have various cities from that period which gradually emerged as industrial towns in that period. It was in the early Harappan phase that mud fortification with clay lump or sun-baked bricks evolved. This period also marked the beginning of metallurgy and bead making. Art from that local trade also began, and a production of cotton became popular in large part of the Harappan settlement. Therefore, understanding the progress of the Harappan economy of the mature phase, a prolific study of early Harappan agriculture and craftsmanship is a prerequisite. Thank you.